My whole work has been romance of innovation. When I came back in 1981, nobody of my caliber means from IIT, going to some of the best. I'm University of Florida, doing PhD, teaching there for 2.5 years, would come back. Very few people came back. They went to big cities. But to come back to rural India was a very stupid thing. It was arrogance and stupidity and genuine. Tremendous arrogance that I'll change India. India is a very ancient society. You cannot, great people, Gandhi, so many people could not change it. Who was I? So it was a very foolish thing to even think about. But that foolishness is what makes you do things from a different perspective. And if you want to do something worthwhile in your life, and I'll talk about how foolish people did things, we change the world. If you want to do something wonderful in your life, you have to be foolish. You have to be mad, just like me. And I don't have any regrets. I hardly made any money. My classmates are the ones who own the Silicon Valley because all my classmates from IITs, they are the big shots. But it gave a tremendous satisfaction, happiness. So romance of innovation has always been my thing. Hero has been Irving Langmuir. I studied thoroughly, and I'll tell you about how it started. Doing my PhD, I was working on desalination of seawater, and I got very deep into the whole basis of surface science, evaporation of water. Then I came upon the paper by Irving Langmuir on evaporation from a coffee cup. Irving Langmuir, if some of you know, and I'll give you, I wrote his biography. And in fact, later on, his grandson wrote to me that this was the best biography he ever read. So I was very thrilled. Even just last month, there were people from America who contacted me about Langmuir because they were interested in some other person who worked with Langmuir. In fact, Langmuir got the Nobel Prize. He was the first industrial chemist to get the Nobel Prize for his surface science work. And the lady who worked with him was Blodgett. And so yeah, they asked me about Blodgett because they knew that I knew some of the people who with whom Langmuir worked, but I had never met her and never knew about her. So the question is this, that here was a great man about whom I will talk, and his main thing was R&D is fun. That was his motive, and that is how it started. I'm talking about 1909 when nobody thought about R&D, especially in the industrial scene. He said R&D is fun. Langmuir was the first industrial chemist to win the Nobel Prize on surface science. In fact, the whole R&D scene of the world started from General Electric. And this is a story which is really remarkable. How a company, a corporate, which were just interested in building, the devices, etc. Why would R&D get into them? Is a story of Langmuir. In partnership with Dr. Whitney, Whitney was also a great man. He came from MIT. The reason why I'm telling you is that great synergy. General Electric was looking for somebody to see how things can be made better. So they went to MIT because that was the closest big name university. And then somebody suggested you take Whitney. And after Whitney came, he started looking around, seeing how things had been made better. And then by chance, Langmuir was teaching in this very third rate college in New Jersey. And he was finding it very, very, not very lucrative in the sense intellectually. And so he was looking around. Then he went to General Electric for internship. Langmuir did his PhD from Germany under a very famous person. He came back to start teaching. Then he was looking for rounds and internship. So when uh, she said that you get a lot of interns, I think interns are the ones who can do a lot of wonderful things there. So internship, he used to come for 2-3 months, and then he said, "This looks very nice," because Whitney gave him the topic. If we are building light bulbs, and all our light bulbs are failing within 5,000, 6,000 hours, some even less, can you make it better? And whatever Langmuir read, he found out that Edison was the one who had screwed the thinking. He said, if you pull the maximum vacuum, then your bulbs will last. So he went to the workshop, started You know, Langmuir, there's a 19-volume history of Langmuir's work from General Electric. And one is on the autobiography. And I happened to read most of them because I got so fascinated by that. So he went to the workshop, he kept on building better and better vacuum, and he found that it didn't work, it was still finished. And in fact, the history of lighting starts from Langmuir. And that is how we started everything. The history of surface science, for which he got a Nobel Prize, the thermionics. There are innumerable, and ultimately it ended up with proceeding. And I was very fortunate to talk and correspond with the pioneer who helped the Langmuir, Schaefer. Schaefer was the father of cloud seeding, and so I had a great satisfaction of interacting with him. Everything that he did was starting from a very small lab scale, and it just flowered because from that small information he could extrapolate to something fundamental. So in the light bulb, he found out, because I'll tell you, this is how we started our work when I came back from the United States. He found the light bulb was getting, they had already gotten tungsten filament. The light bulb was 5,000, well, 1,000, whatever, 1,500 hours, and it was getting black. And then he said, why the bulb is getting black? So he started thinking, and then he found out that the water from the glass was evaporating. It was condensing on the tungsten filament. It was breaking into hydrogen and oxygen, and hydrogen molecule was breaking further into hydrogen atom, and the hydrogen embrittlement of tungsten was taking place. So the tungsten evaporated, condensed on the glass, and that is how it blackened, and immediately the bulb would fail. So from very simple experiments and experiment observation, he realized that this is what is happening, and this gave rise to the surface science, what is happening to hydrogen, how the hydrogen is breaking. And then he just said that if we had put nitrogen or any other inert gas, it should work. And the bulb immediately worked for 10,000, 20,000. He was doing all these things and he was having great fun. And he used to tell Dr. Whitney, Dr. Whitney, I do not know what the General Electric is getting out of it, but I am having a great time. Why I'm telling you this, that he was a PhD. He never thought about money. Life was simple. Whatever he got money in, that was sufficient. And the amount of intellectual exercise that he did, it contributed tremendously to General Electric. And Whitney used to always say, Professor, it is your job to have fun. It is my job to see how that fun can be translated into worthwhile things where General Electric will benefit. And the whole program of R&D of the world started from that fun. How can we create fun in doing R&D? How can we do things so that you do not think too much about your career? You do not think too much about where the money is coming. Money is important, but the question is that the focus should be more on how to solve the problems. Because once that genuine comes, then you don't think about anything else. All the pinpricks go away and the focus, like a yoga, gets on the problems. And was how I did when I came here. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to work in those times when Fulton was a place where to make a phone call, I have to hop on the bus, come to Pune, make phone calls. And nothing was available. It was just a village or a flat piece of land. And so we developed that. What was the Langmuir's method? Start with practical problems and go deeper to understand science. And in that process, you make fundamental discoveries and always curious. You see, too often the scientists say, oh, no, I'm not doing enough fundamental work. Fundamental work comes after you solve the problem. Fundamental work does not happen in the sky or in the cloud or anything. And that is where all the great discoveries have been made. Whether it was the communication theory, it came from Bell, Graham Bell, the phone started, there was a tremendous amount of noise in the wire. They said, how can we reduce this noise? And the whole program of communication theory, which you talk about today, came from that. Large number of mathematicians, large number of physicists were involved. Nothing to do with making better phone call. It is just that how to reduce the noise, how to get a signal. So this fundamental discoveries come only after you start solving the basic problem. Because all these things show you the way. And when the way is shown, then as a curious mind, you start looking at all these things from much a deeper angle. And if you are having fun, then you continue doing that. And from his atomic, the how the hydrogen came out, then he started looking at how the electrons come out from the metal spaces and happens to the spaces, and the whole cosmonics, etc. everything started. In our work on better lanterns, gasifiers, electric rickshaws, I don't know how many of you know, I'm the inventor of electric rickshaw in India. In 1995, when nobody knew about electric rickshaw, we did the work in Fulton with hardly any resources, and we reduced the concept of electric rickshaw. And now the 75 to 80% of India's EV are electric rickshaws. But we didn't get any royalty to that. But it gives me a great satisfaction that it has gone all over the world, and it's a very useful invention. Then solar water purification, sweet sorghum, I talked about all these things, safflower, all try to follow his methodology. We didn't have the deep pockets and resources as General Electric had, and so did not allow us the luxury of doing deep fundamental science. And yet we followed our passion, and hence I call our work as a romance of innovation. So the R&D is like yoga, need to reduce our greed. R&D requires a very focused and highly trained and tuned mind. That can only happen when your basic needs are taken care of. And that is where the real crux lies. How do you define the basic needs? Some people may have more needs, some people may have less. And so if you can reduce your needs, then I think you are on the path of doing good research and development. Other things cannot be thought of on an empty stomach, obviously. If you are hungry, if you are always wanting something, then how can you focus on R&D? R&D is something which is very 120% requires your brain power, requires your focus, your attention, and your whole attitude. And that passion can only come, basic needs are getting there. When the focus is only money and other creature comforts, meaningful R&D is difficult. Sometimes with the danda you can go to it, but it's difficult. All great, if you read the history of the great discoveries of the world, they all come from people who were really passionate, who never thought about anything else. Look at Einstein, etc. Einstein, when he came to the United States, he became a professor at Princeton. They asked him, how much money do you need? So he calculated and he said around $1,000 per year. So he said, Professor, this is too low. Leave it to us. We will take care of that. Because he had calculated that, so much, because he used to have one or two pants or whatever, and he just calculated that. Question is that the focus was something else. It was never the money. And same thing is true in all the discoveries. Later on, they made a lot of money. But when they really did this discovery, it was only discovery. And the focus was 125% on that. All great inventions of the world came not because of me, but the desire to conquer new frontiers and extreme curiosity. We need to curb our greed and practice spirituality. I do that. I live a sustainable life. And there, all my writings, you will see how I live. I've done a very detailed energy calculations. And I've shown that in 1/5 of the energy that is used by an average American, I live a very nice, emotionally satisfying life in a rural area. And everybody can do that. And if we do that, then this earth is sufficient to support us. If we follow the American lifestyle, then we require 4 earths, and it's totally unsustainable. This is what is happening. So Gandhiji taught us, be the change that you want to see. If you follow and do all these things yourself, then we can make this world a better place. Now I'll talk about our inventions. So when I came from United States, Fulton was a place where we had sometimes 4 to 6, 8 hours, no electricity at night. So I started reading on this hurricane lantern, which is called as a Kandi in Maharashtra, or lantern, whatever it is. And I said to myself, as in, I'm a mechanical engineer, PhD in heat transfer, mass transfer, etc. I said, what type of nonsense is this? Which has not changed in the last 120 years. There were no internet. So whatever books, in fact, when I came, I bought 1.5 tons of books, nothing else. And the person at the custom said, what an idiot. You came after 7 years from the United States. You didn't bring a car, you didn't bring a refrigerator, you didn't bring anything. You brought books. So I said, these are my sampati. What is cars? I can get the cars here. Anyway, so that is a different story. What I'm saying is that whatever books I bought, and I found out that what went in this lantern, what it was. And we set in motion the first program in the last 100 years to completely overhaul this lantern. This became a cause celebrity, advisory board of energy, which I was a member, which used to advise Prime Minister Indira Gandhi at the time. We looked at all different materials from the space program, the re-entry rocket, because that is what we wanted for the metal. So the ISRO at the time was just nascent ISRO. They publicized it that a humble lantern is using space stage materials. The reason why I'm telling you is this, that we followed the Langmuir process. We first made this a very efficient lantern, and then we started looking very deeper into how the light is produced from the mantle. We started looking also. We were using kerosene in all these lanterns and stoves. Kerosene was being imported. All of the kerosene was imported in those times from Russia. So I said to myself, can't we have our homegrown fuel? And that is where we started on the program of ethanol from sweet sorghum. We pioneered sweet sorghum in this country. We brought the sweet sorghum from the United States. Our scientists in India Institute, we bred the American variety with the local Mandandi variety, and we produce this very high quality Madhura sweet sorghum, which has sugar equivalent to sugar cane. You have the grain, which you can make the bakri, and then the water is left behind is an excellent fodder for the animals. So from the same piece of land, you can get three things: food, fuel, and fodder. And all our research has been to utilize the whole plant approach and to utilize the maximum amount of energy output from a piece of land. And that is what we have done both in safflower and in sweet sorghum. So this is how we started. We set up the world's first solar powered distillation plant. It was copied by Praj. It was the Tata Chemicals came in 1990, took all our material, and I think they set up a very big plant for the sweet sorghum. Nothing came out of it, but it didn't work. But the sweet sorghum program in the country has spread because of our effort. And when we distilled this alcohol, then we created this land store, which this is 2020 years ago, because we said that we should be able to have LPG replaced by our alcohol. And we developed the alcohol technology where 40% water and 60% alcohol could be used. And last month, Mr. Gadkari talked about that. And everybody is talking about it. And I think if we had done this 20 years ago, there was no need for us to have LPG, etc. But then the vision is never there. This is the sad part. Today, alcohol is going not because of vision, because somebody is making a huge amount of money. And I'll not talk about it. So this is what is, and that is why the talk is here, because you are the harbinger of technologies. Technologies can be produced, great ideas can come, and then you should also interact with the powers to be to see how those ideas develop. So we developed this where for a month, a complete pressurized, and there's very little pressure. Today the pressure is very high in the LPG cylinders, and here the pressure was very low, almost with a hand pump you could do it, and we could run it for almost a month. Not only that, when we produce a very high quality light, the heat of that light cooked a complete meal for the family of five, including chapatis and etc. This got the highest award in Stockholm, and the other awardee was Tesla Motors. Normally, you go to the government for money. The government came to us. What can we do? I went and I said, I would like to put 100 of these units in the huts. And let us see how it evolves. The moment we started that, they gave the project, the government of India, MNRE, the the commissioner of excise came. He says, who gave you permission? So I said, why? I don't need a permission. The government of India is giving me a project. He said, no, to keep alcohol. No, archaic alcohol, no, our excise laws are such. So he says, till you have a license, so every hut will have to have an excise license. I said, what type of this is? I went to the ministers, etc. This is something which we cannot change because maximum money comes from the excise department. This is how it happened. Now I hope when the government is talking about it, that they might change the excise laws and then it will spread. But we still have not seen a lot of interesting things. You can read in the my Minds of Innovation. Then we got into the parallel stream. Can we produce something else? And that is syrup. And we have produced, and we are the only producers of Madhura syrup, which is an excellent stable variety syrup from sweet sorghum. We have been selling to nutraceutical and other places. And it is a very good, we have been using for 125, 30 years. And it's a very good table variety syrup. You can use it for so many things. And we have now an automatic plant, semi-automatic plant. It produces around 60 to 80 kilograms per 8-hour shift. And this is something which can also become the feedstock. Western Maharashtra is a very big sugarcane growing area. After sugarcane is harvested, the farmers want their land ready for the next crop. And the residues, which are the sugarcane leaves, they burn it. This residue burning is taking place all over the country. It has increased because the agriculture has increased. It has produced tremendous amount of pollution. It is a waste of energy. So I said to myself, what can we do to utilize this? And then we embarked on the program of gasification. And one of the first gasifier, this is a half a megawatt gasifier. There's a 4th-generation gasifier running on loose leafy biomass. It was developed in our institute. IITs could not do it. IICs could not do it. We were not very smart. I had just one engineer and 4 technicians. We continued doing it. 24/7 was our motto. In fact, we ran this gasifier for almost a week to an end, and we solved problems as we got it. And this was a very sophisticated gasifier. In 1997, it was a complete PLC-based system, and no market. Today, there are a lot of people who are talking about gasification, etc. And we talk the amount, and then this is a pyrolysis gasifier. And we did a lot of very interesting work in the pyrolysis. We tried to utilize the pyrolysis, the char that we got, for putting in the soil, because we found that it could increase the carbon content. See, again, the problems exist. And when you start going deeper, you start solving a lot of things with that. After the distillation, this distillery effluent is very horrible, very small, very foul smelling, black. So we said, what we can do with solar energy could detoxify. We use zinc oxide, magnesium oxide, titanium oxide. You see which is the cheapest, because with the UV radiation, you can produce the free radicals and they will break these molecules. And so that is where the deep research started at. We still do not know how it works. The answer is not the final, but there's much more work needs to be done, because there's huge amount of alcohol is going to be produced, and you will have a huge amount of effluent, and they are not using the effluent treatment plants. So they put this effluent directly into the water bottles, and this is a horrible thing. So this is something which we did. If we were able to reduce the COD, BOD, etc. by 1995%, we use that water in the plants. Very good. But more work needs to be done. Then we have done a lot of very interesting work, water purification. The schools in rural areas, they don't get good water. The children suffer from diarrhea. At that young age, when the brain is affected, they have stunted growth. And so we said we need to do something for the purification of water. Now, if you take the groundwater, it has a lot of things. So we said we are going to harvest the rainwater and make it completely potable. And this is a very unique technology that we developed. The stagnation temperature which could be starting from 60 to even 45 with different time, you can remove the E. coli completely. And since water does not have any salts because this is a rainwater, it's a perfect thing. Now, 600, there are 3 schools, 600 schools are drinking the water every day. And I think this needs to be taken on last day. We looked at also the Swachh, etc. But the question was that on such scale, without anything except simply solar energy and the rainwater, we can do that. And the most important that we did was that this was also the way to teach STEM to students. They are the ones who operate the solar system. So they start looking at what is solar energy. You look at the rainwater harvesting. They make the troughs in the roof. So this is all because you learn engineering by actually doing it. Then in agriculture, besides our safflower seed sorghum, we also work in animal husbandry, work in breeding of better sheep for milk and meat production. Her younger sister, who is a PhD in breeding program, she works on this. Awasi was introduced in India by us. We introduced the FECB gene, Garol sheep from the West Bengal, so that the twinning can take place, which means that the farmers will get more income because mostly it is used for the meat. So if they can twin, they get more meat. Extension work among local shepherds. And this was a joint project between our institute, NCL, and University of New India in Australia. This was funded by ACII from Australia and funded now by University of India and looked after by Dr. Jagannathan. So this is also, and we have very good labs on plant, on sheep breeding, animal breeding, testing, insemination, artificial insemination, and so on. So there's some impact of our work. We will 10,000 megawatt biomass based power plants set up in India because I am the principal author of the biomass energy policy of India. When we did work on our gasification before that, we set up the first taluka based system, how we can create energy. And at the time we showed that all the agricultural residues in a taluka can easily make 10 to 15 megawatt of power. And that was sufficient. And based upon this, the whole biomass resource mapping of each taluka has been done by the government of India. Then we pioneered the use of sweet sorghum for ethanol and syrup production. And then we use ethanol as a household cooking. And since we could not do it, it spread all over the world, including the Latin America, Africa, where there is no such laws. And the whole program of alcohol cooking and lighting came from our lands. And e-rickshaws concept in 1990s. Next. Then when we were working with these rural women, poor people, when we were giving them stores, we started asking questions about other things. We found that they were spending close to 300 to 400 rupees per month on medicines. So I said, why? And then we found out that they were eating very poorly. You see, a woman who works for 7 hours in the sun, it's so difficult for her to come and cook for the whole family. So they just make bhakris, big bhakris, and with small amount of salt and pepper and other things they eat. So when the food is so poor, they are going to get sick. So I developed this concept of rural restaurants. This is 2012. Amma's Kitchen, Maharashtra, Shiv Bhojan, they all came from that. And today, 7 crore thalis. In fact, when I wrote that paper in 2012, it was 10 rupees per thali. Today, still it is 10 rupees. And so this is spreading. The idea was that these people will go get subsidized food from when they finish the farm. They'll go subsidized food, good nutrition food. So they don't have to cook. The pollution will be reduced. At the same time, they'll get good food. But the most important thing is frugal innovations. Whatever we have done, in 15 crores since 1981, we have done everything here. We made most of things in our workshop. We don't require too much money. We require passion and deep thinking. And you can solve some of the great problems of the world. Problems exist right in front of our eyes. And if all of us work, that will be the start of the real Viksit Bharat. Not by slogans, but by actually attacking the problems of the country. Thank you very much. Questions? I'd like to have sharp questions.
So when you are working on these projects, so sometimes you must have seen failures. How did you overcome it, or how did you deal?
I write a lot on spirituality.
Mm.
That keeps me sane. So when things fail, I focus on, because I apply the same technology that I learned in uni on the spirituality. Because I do a lot of brain research. What is thought? How it is produced? What exactly happens to the body? And that is very satisfying. And with the internet, we can find anything. See, these are all physical things. And now, for whatever reason, because nobody wants to come and work in rural areas in deep R&D. So I have kept my sanity by looking at a lot of things for brain research and etc. on the internet. I have 3 books.
Mm.
I write regularly in Times of India, the Speaking Tree column. This keeps me very satisfied. One needs to keep yourself occupied and entertained. That is the most important. Boredom is the first step. That's why they used to say in the old times, the empty mind is a devil's workshop.
Mm.
You start thinking about money, about this, that.
This rural innovation, the Indian perspective, the market adaptability, you have seen that the market adaptability going to be poor or being a poor. Whereas in the West or in China, the rural innovation become a mainstream product of mainstream processes. So what are that we are missing in
Because see, what your General Electric, again I go back to Langmuir. He was doing the frugal innovation. Really, there were frugal innovations. Whatever you could get, he was developing these devices. It was Whitney and the General Electric people who said, we'll take this up. There's a lot of distance from the development, then the small, whatever it's called, and prototypes, and then finally up. There's a lot of difference, lot of distance. But the hard strength. I was a member of many committees in Planning Commission. In those times, Planning Commission, Ministry of Renewable Energy, they used to have this program, Improved Chulas. And I used to always tell them, I said, did your Planning Commission ever go and sell bicycles in the rural India? Because if the product is good, the product is very useful. People take mobile phones, the massive infiltration came in rural India. Not only a means of communication, a means of entertainment. Nobody manufactures mobile phones in rural area. Nobody does talk about this, the frugal innovations. Questions is that the technology, after all, the people in the rural India don't have a single neuron less than you and I have. Their aspirations are same. Why should they be given the third rate things? If the thinking right from R&D stage is that we should have given the best technology, maybe cheaper, maybe utilizing the resources, because the resources should be as decentralized, and in the future, with the 3D printing, the whole economies of scale will vanish. We have to think of economics completely in a different point of view. So these are the things that need to be thought right now. And based upon that, then you do R&D, and then you do the other things. And frugal innovations come. See, that nano was a fantastic example. Ratan Tata thought really, nobody at that time told him that this can be a fantastic electric vehicle. If it had been electric vehicle, it would have spelled this so long ago. When I was developing the electric rickshaw, I developed the electric rickshaw and I went to all the major players, Bajaj, TI Cycles, Hero. They all said, "What? Electric rickshaw? Are you mad? You give us electric bicycle." And I knew right from beginning, because of my work, that rickshaw provides enough space for doing a lot of things with the battery, the motor, which a bicycle does not allow. So you have to have a very sophisticated system, the hub motors, it's all sort of things. I'm a mechanical engineer, but I learned everything about electrical engineering. And that is what we need to do. See, there is no such thing as frugal innovation. I just, because now it is a buzzword, so I use that. All innovations are same. The same innovation that I use for the jet rockets, I should use for designing things for the rural areas. And when you do that, and with the resources that we have in the rural area, sun, wind, biomass, because that requires also very, very sophisticated thinking on how to convert biomass. You see, these are very dilute resources. How to convert those dilute resources into finally end product very efficiently is a tremendous exercise in engineering and science. No jugaad. Jugaad is the worst thing that you can do.
So in continuation to that, so I just want to understand from you what are the three food ingredient as an individual, as a family, society, country we are missing, although we are at a reasonably technology and science understanding, right, as a country. But the rapid evaluation of our neighbor country, China, right? We today they have done the massive in terms of the capitalization in the renewable energy. So where we have sun and rain free, we are not trying to engage that as an individual, as a society, and so what are the three four ingredients?
There's no 3, 4 ingredient.
Or minimum only one ingredient.
We are fear of failures.
So then how to overcome, sir?
Yourself. Each one of you become fearless. That is what Gandhi
Come boils down that fundamental thing that in Ruzi Makan, still we are as a citizen, right? I'm not telling the common man and rich man and superman. Then again the majority people are still struggling for it.
each one of us have to, for example, as I said, I live in a very simple manner. I reduce my needs. I'm not saying that everybody should do that, but I think it should start from the setting. What makes you feel comfortable is how it should start. And then it spreads. And if each one of us does do that, then that requires a deep thinking, where the deep thinking will be utilized in so many other things. And that is what starts. I give a lot of lectures on this deep thinking, on the spirituality, but it has to start from ourselves. You see, my father went to jail with Gandhi. I used to always ask him, from those heights, what have you brought our country to? He's no more. And I got this thinking that we are very afraid of failures. And when we are afraid of failures, then we consider everybody else as a cook. If the government gives money, we all the time keep on thinking, or anybody who gives money, really what happens if we fail? My professor got one of the highest awards from NASA for the Saturn V rocket. I had a great distinction of meeting the father of modern rocket, Von Braun, the man who made the rockets for Hitler. He was the administrator of NASA. So I met him, etc. In NASA, they would give 10 projects. And they said if 9 fail, it does not matter. But one that succeeds will take care of everything. All our ecosystem is based upon this fact. This guy is a chore, he will take this money and run. I do not know how it came. Maybe Britishers, whatever. Our laws have not changed. They've still remained the same as the British because we can subjugate that. So unless until we remove the fear, you ask yourself, your child goes to the school. If he is curious, he asks a question, immediately sit up. We never teach curiosity. We never make children ask questions because that is how they start. I have 2 daughters. There were no good schools in Falta. We started a school for our daughters. It's become a very famous school now. My younger daughter is a trustee and runs a school. Our major thing is in that school is let children ask as many questions as possible. So in whole Fulton area, you can immediately know. You don't have to ask. You are from Kamlanam Karbarwala. Spark. It's not one day process. It's a very long process, but we have to start with ourselves. This is the only thing I can say.
We have to involve ourselves that sunset so that we will have a hordes of people like you.
You see the country, we talk about, I'm sorry to say, we talk about Viksit Bharat. Every young person of this country, because I'm sure that large number of people here also, if I have the power to give you green card in America, you all know. Why? We are the same people who run the world. You name any big company and they are Indians. Ideas, whatever. Why can we not do the same thing here? That we should ask ourselves. You cannot change the world, but if you can change it. And if we all of us change ourselves, I think the world can be changed.
Thank you.
Thank you.